Hey guys, I'm here with my February wrap up for you. I didn't do a lot of reading for pleasure in February. I mostly did reading for my college classes, in particular my Victorian literature class, because we have read a whole bunch of novels, a whole bunch of classics so far. While I have enjoyed all of them, some more than others, but overall I've enjoyed all of them. When you're reading these classic novels like one a week, it doesn't leave a lot of time for pleasure reading, which is fine, you know, it comes with the territory. But yeah, I'm going to tell you about those classics today, and then one book that I did just read for pleasure. So without further ado, let's get into the books. The first one I have to show you is Hard Times by Charles Dickens. I really enjoyed this book. It may be my favorite of the ones that we've read in my Victorian literature class so far. This is mainly a satire of the industrial age in Victorian Britain, and just how, you know, how awful conditions were for workers during that time, and how so much emphasis in society was put on, you know, fact and logic, and not much was given to like the more emotional side of things, and thinking about how people were feeling and how they were suffering under this kind of oppressive mindset. So like a lot of Dickens' works, it's a social criticism of that kind of atmosphere and mindset. Because it's a satire, it's definitely very sensationalized. The characters are very over the top, very kind of ridiculous, and are supposed to be pretty laughable. And I really enjoyed that. Some people in my class didn't find that as enjoyable and entertaining as I did. They found it kind of annoying and hard to like kind of connect with the characters, but I did not have that issue. I connected with the characters just fine, and I definitely cared about them and what was going to happen to them and everything like that. So just to give you an idea of the actual plot of the story, I'm going to read the back of this to you really quick because it does a good job of summarizing it. Mr. Thomas Gradgrind, headmaster of Coketown School and model of utilitarian virtue, feeds his pupils and family with nothing but facts and bans fancy and wonder from young minds, showing how his neglect of feelings leads to both personal misery and strife in wider society. In contrast with the happiness of the free-spirited circus girl Sissy Jupe, Dickens' novel is a celebration of the power of the imagination. So that's just kind of a perfect synopsis of what this novel is about, and I would certainly recommend it if it sounds like something that you would enjoy. This was actually only the second work of Dickens that I've ever read. I read Christmas Carol this past December, and I'm discovering that I really love Dickens' writing style. He's very clever, he's very funny, I enjoy his wit, and so I will definitely be picking up more Dickens in the future. The next thing I have to show you is Silas Marner by George Eliot. This is the shortest of George Eliot's works by far. It's only about 200 pages, I think, and this follows the tale of, you guessed it, Silas Marner, who is brought up in a very religious environment. His church is kind of his family, and one day something happens and he is falsely accused of a crime and has to leave his church, go to live in a different village, and this just really rocks his faith. It kind of rocks his entire world, his entire foundation. He just kind of sinks into this depression and doesn't really talk to or socialize with anybody in his new village. He just kind of isolates himself in his cabin and just goes about his weaving all day and never really talks to anyone, and just sinks further and further into this rut. He becomes obsessed with the money he makes from weaving, and the gold coins that he garners from that work kind of become his friends, and he just becomes obsessed with them, and he takes them out every night and looks at them. His obsession with them and his love for these coins is really the only thing that he has in his life, until one day when due to a certain set of circumstances, a small child wanders into his home, and he decides that he is going to keep her and raise her as his own. And it's just about the transformation that her presence brings on in his life. And it's also about other characters in the village and what they're going through and what their stories are. And it's kind of just a story of this small country village and their ways of life and the way that they interact with one another. And I really enjoyed this, not as much as some of the other things that we've read in class. I enjoyed George Eliot's writing style. I definitely want to give more of her work a try, but just this story, while it was good and charming and endearing, it just didn't strike any, you know, special chords with me. So it was just kind of average for me. So I gave this a 3 out of 5 stars. And the next thing that we read in my Victorian literature class is Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. This is the second biggest book that we have read so far behind Jane Eyre, and we read it in a week, and it was quite a challenge. The challenge of reading it in such a short time aside, I enjoyed this. It wasn't exactly what I was expecting. I don't really know what I was expecting. I didn't know a whole lot about the story before going in. I just knew that it was about Bathsheba Everdeen, who inherits her uncle's farm and becomes the mistress of the farm, which obviously is uncommon for a woman during her time. So that aspect was really cool. And then it's just about these relationships that she forms with these three men that come into her life, and how the complications that arise in those relationships, kind of how they all hurt each other and help each other, and just the struggles that they have in their everyday, day-to-day lives. But even more than that, I would say it's just about the lives and the joys and struggles of all of the people in this community, of this small rural farming village that they all live in. It's a very pastoral novel. Hardy is, of course, very well known for the descriptive writing that he does about the landscape and just nature in general, and that was probably my favorite part of this novel. I really enjoyed those passages. Other than that, though, as far as the main plot of the novel with Bathsheba and the three men, it was okay. It wasn't anything super extraordinary to me. Overall, I think I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. It was a pretty good read for me, just kind of average again, like I said, with Silas Marner. But I did enjoy it, and I would like to pick more Hardy up in the future. Last thing I have to show you is just kind of a little art book, and that is a Teacup Collection, Paintings of Porcelain Treasures by Molly Hatch, with an essay by Kathleen Morris. And this is just what it says. It's just paintings of this teacup collection that Molly did. It's the collection that is housed at the Clark Art Institute in Williamstown, Massachusetts. And Molly just went in and was allowed access to the teacups and the porcelain in their collection, and got to choose some of her favorites and paint these portraits of them. As you can see, it's a very gorgeous book all around. And papers are these gold polka dots. And then, of course, there's all of the beautiful teacups. And this is just a little information about them. Where it originated from, the artist, what kind of porcelain was used, the year that it was made, etc. I really enjoyed this. It was just a cute little, I don't even know if you could call it a read, because there's not much to read. There's just it's mostly made up of pictures, but I really enjoyed flipping through this and seeing all the beautiful teacups. I'll just show you a few of my favorite ones. I love floral patterns, so any of the floral pattern ones were definitely my favorite. And she does close-up details of like what is on the saucer of the teacup set, and other little details on the teacups as well. And there is this one that has a hot air balloon, which I also love, so I really liked that one. And then this was another floral one that I really enjoyed. So I mentioned in my last video, my January wrap-up, that my friend Katie and I are reading a book a month together this year. This was our second January pick. We chose the picture book that I showed in my last video, and this one as well. But I didn't get to this one until February, so that's why I'm showing it in this wrap-up. Yeah, we both really enjoyed this. I gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. If you like teacups or porcelain or anything like that, then I would definitely recommend giving this a try. And speaking of my little book club with Katie, still working on our February picks because I'm very slow. And the 2 that we chose for February are the short story collection By Light We Knew Our Names by Anne Valente. I am really enjoying this so far. I've read the first like 5 or 6 stories, and I'm hoping to finish it before the week is out and I have to go back to school. Each story kind of has a little dose of magical realism in it, and I love that. And I have really enjoyed all the stories that I have read so far, and I am sure that I will enjoy all the rest of them when I get to them. Our second pick is a little poetry collection, and that is Girl Show by Kirsty Bowen. I first heard about this on Jen Campbell's channel. I will link her down below, even though I'm sure you all already know about her and are subscribed to her because she's amazing. This just sounds really enchanting and magical, and I've been wanting to get into some more poetry lately, as I think Jen has inspired a lot of us to do, and I thought this would be a good place to start. And I believe Katie's already finished this and really enjoyed it, so I can't wait to get to it myself. Alright, that is everything. Oh, that is not everything, actually. I forgot. I read one more, or I completed one more book in February, but I don't have it with me. And that book is Life's Operating Manual by Tom Shadyac. I loved this book. I gave it a 5 out of 5 stars. I read it for my writing class. It was just a super enlightening, inspiring read for me. It's kind of a philosophical work. It's Tom Shadyac reflecting on his new life view that he received after he went through this near-death experience, and kind of decided to, after that, take stock of his life and kind of reevaluate his choices and the way that he was living. And it's just kind of his new viewpoint. And he covers topics from economics to education to happiness and fulfillment. And it's just really inspiring. And it's set up, each chapter is about a different topic. And at the beginning of that chapter, he gives an essay of an overview of his thoughts on that topic. And then at the end of that chapter, he does something called fear and truth dialogues, where it's his fear communicating with his truth on that topic. It was really interesting. I really liked it. It definitely opened my eyes to some new viewpoints about things and kind of really made me think, and I've still been thinking about it ever since I finished it a few weeks ago. So if that sounds interesting to you, I would definitely recommend that you pick it up. It's fantastic. So that is everything I have for my February wrap-up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please let me know if you've read any of these books and what you thought of them down in the comments, and if any of them look interesting to you and you'd like to pick them up, please let me know that as well. I would love to speak to you, and thank you for watching.